Good evening. It is 6:30 Thursday, July 20th, 2023. We're now calling to order the meeting for the Historic Town of Eatonville Community Redevelopment Agency agenda. Mrs. King, will you please do a roll call?
Yes, Board Member Randolph.
Yes.
Board Member Marlon Daniels.
Present.
Board Member Washington. Board Member Ruthie Critton. Vice Chair Daniels.
Here.
And Chair Gardner.
Here. Please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we go to public participation, we did hear from Board Member Critton that she would not be here tonight, as well as I want to just point out a couple of things on the agenda. Items 3 and 4, they will not be discussed tonight. And item number 5 will not be decided upon tonight because it's not a CRA item, it's a town item. So it'll be on the town's first agenda in August. And that's it. With that being said, Mrs. King, are there any public participants?
Yes, we do have Angela Johnson.
So I'll hold some of my questions for items that you just indicated that would not be, I guess they're being transferred, you're saying. So 3, 4, and 5 are going over to the town meeting?
5 is.
5 is. Okay, so, item number 2, when you're discussing the community land trust, a couple of different areas in there that talked about different boundaries, and then it talked about the CRA boundaries. When you get to that item, is it possible for there to be some clarification on the area, parcels of land, et cetera? It's my understanding that when there have been community land trust, that it has not been for like an entire municipality. So I would assume that you have some targeted areas or parcels. So if there could be some clarification on that, would be appreciated. The item number 7, I know this is coming back, the paint plant in pay program. It says fiscal year 23. I'm assuming that's fiscal year ending or beginning October 1, 2023, and not ending 9/30/2023. So if there could be some clarification on that as well as, and I think that will dictate the date of the rollout of the program notification of residents. And I think in the prior discussions, you all mentioned that it would probably be something that would be funded over several different quarters, so it's not spent down in one quarter. And it seems as though, obviously for that first come, first serve, depending upon who receives notifications and stuff like that. So if there can be some clarification on the date and the rollout of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Anthony Grant.
Good evening, board and chairwoman. I apologize, I just woke up, so I'm a little late. Just one question. What is the status? I sent an email about 3 months ago, 90 days or so, about the the property that the CRA acquired through the death of Tommy Dixon, that eviction process. are we gonna allow those individuals just to continue to live in the property, or what is the town's position, and the CRA's position on that?
Well, that was pushed over to the town side, and that process has begun
So
through
it's already been
attorney.
evicted? Eviction process has begun?
Yeah, it started, gosh, what, about 2 months ago? About two months ago, it was referred over to the town side.
So the eviction was filed 2 months ago?
I don't, I could be up, it was about 2 meetings ago that came up.
2 meetings ago is when it was pushed over to Attorney Shepherd. I actually emailed Attorney Shepherd, and he said that he would, I'm letting you pull up the email, so I am quoting him.
So has an eviction actually been filed? Because it only takes a few days to file an eviction.
He actually said that he will file the eviction at the end of this week.
But the process started
The process is
on
started.
his side about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, all right. You're welcome. Anyone else?
I know that would be it.
All right, so that ends, thank you, everyone. The next item is the consent agenda, approval of the CRA meeting minutes from June 15.
Second.
It's been moved in second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. And now we're ready for a discussion for the Hannibal man. Would you please give me your name one more time?
Camille Reynolds Lewis.
Okay, Ms. Lewis is coming at the request. Would you like to introduce?
We'll come to the podium.
Would you like to introduce? Or you want me to keep going?
Doesn't matter. He's your worker.
So, Ms. Lewis is here to show you what a land trust could do for the community. Earlier, the question was asked, what boundaries, tonight, none of that has even been, laid out. But right now, what I would like for everyone here is how an effective land trust, a community land trust could work. And that's why Ms. Lewis is here, to give you information regarding how the Hannibal Land Trust operates. And that's it. So with that being said, you can.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to speak from the perspective of Hannibal Square Community Land Trust, but I'll also clarify things about community land trusts in general. So the first thing that I guess I want to talk about is that community land trusts actually were birthed out of the civil rights movement. Slater King and Shirley Sherrod and several others went to visit Israel in the 1960s to try to figure out how to provide opportunities for Black farmers to become independent and not be sharecroppers. And so they saw how the community land trust worked in Israel, and they started community land trusts here in the United States. Today, there are over 300 community land trusts across the country. There's 20 plus in the state of Florida. Next slide, please. So there's some key points to what makes a community land trust a community land trust. The first thing is that the primary mission of community land trust is home ownership. Today, though community land trusts have been used for, as I said, farm land and farm co-ops, they've also been used for commercial and retail. They've also been used for rentals. The basic principle is that if someone is buying a home in the community land trust, they buy the house, they lease the land. They don't take ownership of the land. It's similar to a condo situation. It's similar to what's happening in Celebration, where people who buy homes in Celebration buy the improvements, the house only. Disney maintains control of the land. So the idea of holding the land in the community land trusts, which are always nonprofit organizations, is to make sure that the co-op, the whole group, continues to have control of what happens with the properties of the land. Community land trusts are a very good way of staving off gentrification. And everyone who owns a home in a community land trust is a member of the community land trust. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not some entity handling anything. Everyone who's there is part of the membership. They vote on what happens. Pretty much every single community land trust in the United States has a tripartite board, which means that 1/3 of the board has to be homeowners in the community land trust. The other thing is that the community land trust holds the land in perpetuity. So they never give up control. They always maintain ownership. They always determine what happens with that property. Again, it's a tri-party agreement as well as a tripartite organization. So the tri-party agreement, when someone buys a home, the agreement is between the buyer, the community land trust, and the lender. The lenders work in partnership in this type of setup because the lenders understand that the land is not part of this mortgage. And the lenders understand that they need to make an opportunity for, if something goes wrong with the property, the lenders have to reach out to the community land trust to let them know and give them an opportunity to take ownership back of that home so that it doesn't go into foreclosure. And one of the things I like to point out is that during the economic downturn in 2006, 2007 and 8, the prime mortgages had a foreclosure rate of, I think, like 9% or 9.8%. Subprimes are like 16, 17%. Community land trusts across the country, the foreclosure rate was less than 1%. And it's because of this kind of tripartite agreement. Anyone who buys a home in a community land trust, they maintain the same benefits as any other home buyer. They go into typically a 30-year mortgage. They can homestead their property. They get the same tax benefits as anyone else when they file federal income taxes, who is a mortgage holder. They pay property taxes. It's at a lower rate because it's a community land trust, but they pay property taxes. They basically have the same benefits, but they don't own the land. Again, it's something like a condominium situation. And then the other key point that I want to make sure that we understand is that every agreement, every tri-party agreement has a resale formula. There's a resale process in community land trust that makes them so. So anytime somebody buys a home, they understand that they're buying in a community land trust. They're buying at less than market rate, and that there is a maximum sale price when they go to sell, so that they will not sell at market rate. And the reason why that's important is because one of the things that happens with affordable housing is that maybe somebody gets it at a lower cost when they first buy it, but then when they sell at market rate, that affordable housing unit is now out of the market. And so now the next person who's looking in the same kind of income bracket can't find something. And that's where we're at this critical point right now, where incomes are not lining up with mortgage price, with house prices, because everything is at way above market and incomes are here. Community land trusts help to be the one option for affordable housing, but they help to bring that narrow that gap and help to make more opportunities for people to become homeowners. Next slide. Local governments like community land trusts because of the fact that there is a subsidy retention portion of being a community land trust. So what that means is typically if somebody who is buying a home needs down payment assistance, if a local government provides or state provides down payment assistance for that buyer, when that buyer, the down payment assistance usually is for what, 5 to 20 years, depending upon what's written in there. When that buyer goes to sell, especially if they've finished out their 5 years, 15 years, whatever, they can sell at whatever the market can bear. So now what that means is that that subsidy was only good for 15 years or 5 years or whatever. And then when the next buyer comes, the local government has to provide another down payment assistance. The way that community land trusts work with home ownership is that typically that subsidy is only needed one time because of the maximum sales price that is part of the resale formula. The other thing that community land trusts do in rental units with our subsidy retention is that, you know, most of the times when developers build apartment buildings, they get, whether it is low-income housing tax credits or some other subsidy from federal, state, or local governments to be able to build something affordable. And they're required to keep those apartments affordable for 15 years, 30 years. I've seen some go as much as 50 years now. But eventually, they can start selling those units at market rate. And the Schoenberg Center found that by 2030, there's going to be 35,000 plus affordable rental units that are going to be out of the market in Florida because those subsidy timeframes expired. Again, because community land trusts provide affordable housing, whether it's rental homeownership in perpetuity, you never have to worry about those units ever coming out of the affordability market. Next slide. So again, how it works, you buy the house or the improvement and you lease the land is the basic CLT formula. There is a sales price. The land actually comes out so the first, let's just go back. The first unit that's built, first new construction, the land price is taken out of that price. When there's an appraisal done, there's a market value for that price. The land price, it comes out of that value, which is the first subsidy that helps to reduce the price. And then the buyer will pay a ground lease fee. Ground lease fees vary from community land trust. They're usually nominal. Hannibal Square's ground lease fees range from $45 to $65 a month. It's basically a transactional fee. It's less than a cell phone bill that says that we're in an agreement. You're the buyer. We are the community land trust. We're in an agreement that you can lease this land. It is a 99-year lease, renewable for another 99 years. Pretty much every single CLT across the country has a minimum 99-year ground lease. So, it gives you exclusive rights to that land. You can do any kind of improvements on your property you'd like. We've had homeowners build fences. I've heard in certain other parts of the country, people will do things like, put in a pool. We've had people put in patios. You can do whatever you want as long as you are staying in the guidelines of the community land trust requirements and the ground lease agreement. Community land trusts are an instrument for neighborhood stability, because when people start owning homes, they start putting stakes in the community. And so now they are part of the community. They want to have a say-so in the community. And one of the things that is just common knowledge, if you pay attention, gentrification happens when there are more rental units or rental housing in a neighborhood than ownership housing. Because then they're absentee landlords. They don't really have that much of a stake in it. They're just collecting rent. And then that's where you have other people coming in and making offers, and that's how gentrification happens. So if you have more people owning homes, you have less of that opportunity, that concern. Next slide, please. Again, CLTs work better when the land is donated. We do buy land, and other CLTs do buy land from time to time, but when the land is donated, it becomes a lot easier for the nonprofit organization to be able to provide that subsidy. Otherwise, they're actually just basically eating the cost of the land, which is okay because of the fact of the long-term benefit to the community and the long-term benefit for the organization. There are different formulas that CLTs use. There are 4 different types. One is index-based, one is a flat fee. There's another one. Hannibal Square Community Land Trust uses an appraisal-based formula. So our belief, and many other CLTs' belief, is that if you are purchasing a home, you need to understand appraisals, you need to understand increases in property value. So our formula is based upon how the property appreciates, and that's the entire property, not just the improvement that they purchased, but the entire property, the house and the land. As that appreciates over time, if you choose to sell, you benefit from that appreciation because you've been a homeowner and you've been a citizen that has done what you need to do. You paid your taxes, you should be able to get some benefits. Next slide, please. So this is an example for one of the developments that we're currently doing. We're not just in Hannibal Square anymore. In 2016, our board and our membership voted to expand beyond the CRA limits of Hannibal Square. We are now servicing Orange. We can now service Orange, Osceola, Lake, and Seminole counties. And I think somebody mentioned something about whether or not CLTs can be outside of the CRA. I know that, for example, Delray Beach Community Land Trust, their area is the entire city of Delray Beach. It's wherever your bylaws and your articles say that you are servicing. Most CLTs work with CRAs or with areas that are in transition, where they can come in and provide the most benefit. So in our property that we're developing in Orlando on Orange Center Boulevard near Camping World Stadium, we did a land purchase for $15,000. That works out to be about $17,000 per. We're building 30 townhomes there per townhome, which means that is the amount that goes to the seller as a credit, as the first subsidy to take the price down on the property. And then their monthly ground lease fee is $50 a month. Next slide, please. The way that the sales prices work, we've got 2 side-by-side ideas of showing you how subsidies work here. So the market value for the property is $295,000. Bear in mind, this was done in 2019. So the market price was about $295,000. Again, the first subsidy is the land, so that's $17,500. So now the sales price, which is below market, would now be $277,000. Then the DPAs come in and stack. And depending upon the buyer's need, the mortgage for the buyer, in these two examples, one person has a mortgage of $205,000, the other one has a mortgage of $158,000. And one of the things that community land trusts do, we not only provide the property, we don't leave after that. So we work with the lenders, we develop relationships with them. We work with our housing partner, Health CDC. We work with different organizations to try to help the potential buyer get as many subsidies as they need to be able to afford to pay their mortgage. So now if you see the person on the right column, that property is valued at $295,000. They have a mortgage of $158,000. That makes that very attainable for somebody who is a school teacher or somebody who is working for local government or something like that. But they're a homeowner. They get to be a homeowner. They get an opportunity. And one of the things that community land trusts do is that we help to provide more units for specifically Black and Indigenous people of color, because many times without something like a CLT or some other entity that's helping, those people are left out of the homeownership market. And so we're narrowing the wealth gap, because everybody knows that the lowest hanging fruit for economic wealth is homeownership. And so you provide more opportunities for people to own homes, to have stable monthly payments, as opposed to rents going up every year, and you never know if it's going to be $400 next year or it's going to be $600 next year. It goes up. It's pretty stable. You have roots for your children, your family. And so it's an opportunity that really does lift up a community. Next slide, please. So the ground lease agreement, this is an integral part of a community land trust. It is, again, an agreement between the land trust, the buyer, and the mortgage lender. And that's where a relationship comes in, because every lender is not doing a CLT loan. So we work with our potential lenders to make sure that they're understanding how this works, that the land is not a part of this mortgage, that they're going to be cooperating with us and helping us if the buyer runs into any trouble. The ground lease agreement is for 99 years. It's renewable for another 99 years, and it's transferable. So say you've been in your house for 30 years and you're ready to retire and go to a senior living facility or something, and you want to give the property to your son, daughter, whatever. That ground lease is transferable to a family member. Again, everybody who buys in a community land trust becomes a member of the community land trust. The other thing, there's two things that also the ground lease agreement does. It prohibits market rate resales. The other thing it does is it prohibits the homeowner from turning that property into rental property. Again, the key here is home ownership. That ground lease agreement is very, very clear. If you buy a property and then you're going to start renting it out, you're violating the CLT. You need to now move, go find something else, and that property needs to go on sale to somebody else who wants to become a homeowner. So it's never going to be something that's income property for someone else. That's another reason why owning the land is so important. Because, for example, if someone buys a home in a CLT and then they have homesteaded, and they will homestead, they're required to homestead, the CLT gets notified by the property appraiser, because they're co-owners. When you look at the property appraisal, it shows that there's a joint ownership between the buyer and the CLT. If that property comes out of homestead, the CLT gets notified. What that tells you then is that that person is no longer their primary residence. And so if it's not your primary residence, you don't need to be here. If you can afford something else, we're not going to let you just make this into income property for yourself. This needs to be available for the next person who's looking for a home. Okay, you can go to the next slide. I'm sorry. Again, the benefits, I think I mentioned them before. The purchaser pays property taxes. They can claim homestead exemption. They get the same mortgage deductions on their income taxes. The property appreciates and builds equity for the homeowner. Next slide. This is a very complicated formula to tell how the resale calculation works. I'm going to kind of go through it. We can, if the CRA wants more details or wants to have some more information, again, we're making ourselves, Hannibal Square Community Land Trust will make ourselves available to answer questions, to do an intense training if you guys are thinking about it. But let's look at this just as an example. The very top line is the value of the land at the time of the first sale. The second is the value of the house. And the third line, 223,000, is the total appraised value of that property at the first sale. Say the home buyer gets a mortgage of $170,000. Say they got $20,000 in DPA. So now their sales price to the value of the property ratio is 76.2%. It's a little complicated. I didn't know what our audience was for this, so we can go into more details with the CRA board. That sales to value ratio is part of the calculation in the resale formula. Go down to the gray, the blue, the greenish. The new sales price 10 years later, new value 10 years later is 300,000. The initial value when they purchased was 223. So now the market appreciation value, the appreciation of the property is $77,000. They don't share in 77,000 because they are only at 76.2%. So they share in 76.2% of that 77,000, 58,000. In our formula, they get 25% of the appreciation, and the rest of that value stays in the land. Nobody gets that. Nobody, the CLT doesn't get that. They don't take it out. It stays in the land. It's just helping to keep the price down. That share for them is 14,006 basically. The maximum sales price then is going to be what they paid plus their share. The next person being able to buy that same property for 184,006. So that's basically how it works. The original buyer who's selling gets that 14,000 plus, of course, they get all the money that they have benefited from paying down their mortgage. So they still make some decent money. It's all depending upon how the property appreciates in value. Today, house prices are well over 300,000 for median house prices, so the appreciation value would be a lot higher. Can you go to the next slide, please? So in the three images up at top, the middle one is actually an example of, it's not an example, it's a true story of one of our homeowners who sold their home in 2018. So the first one, the column to the left is market rate home, where they benefit from the equity from paying down their mortgage, plus the appreciation value of their property. The second one is a CLT home, where it's not the same kind of number, but they still benefit from the equity of paying down their mortgage, plus the appreciation in value of the property. That buyer did walk away with $49,900. The third is if you're renting. And if you've been there for 10 years and you've rented, you'd be lucky if you get your $14,000 back in rent at the time, your deposit back. Otherwise, that's all you're getting for being there for 10 years. And so down in the white here, it kind of explains how it's calculated. The yellow bar talks about the monthly payments. So at the time, again, this is 2019. The monthly mortgage for that market rate property was $1,700. The CLT homeowner's monthly mortgage was $902. And then the average rent for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath was $1,400. So again, they're also benefiting from a lower monthly payment than they would be if they were renting. Go to the next slide, please. The other important aspect of a community land trust is the whole community portion of it. You know, we don't leave after the person buys the home. We are there for those buyers in perpetuity, as long as they're in the home until they sell. We act as an intermediary between the mortgage holder. We act as an intermediary with the local governments. We provide community events. We do homeowner workshops. Again, CLT homeowners serve on the board of directors. I tell a story about one of our homeowners because it kind of is an example of how the CLT doesn't leave. We had a homeowner, this was several years ago, 2013, I think it was. We had a homeowner, or 2014, who had stopped paying the mortgage. And the lender contacted us. She missed 2 mortgage payments. The lender contacted us and said, you know, Mrs. So-and-so hasn't paid her mortgage. We haven't been able to reach her. We don't know what's going on. And the executive director at that time went to the home, and her daughter answered the door. She had had a stroke. She was in the hospital. She was in rehab. Her daughter didn't know anything about paying mortgage and just didn't answer the phones because she didn't know who it was. So, of course, you know, we visit the homeowner. We, of course, you know, see what we can do to help her. But we also talk to the mortgage lender. And we're like, this is what's going on with her. Let's see if we can work something out. And the mortgage lender agreed to put her arrears, her late mortgage payments to the back of her mortgage so that when she was able to go back to work, she started making her monthly mortgage payments again, and she shows no default. And so this is part of what happens with a CLT. It's not like a regular seller who, once you sign the papers, it's, maybe I get a basket and we're gone. It just doesn't happen that way. Next slide, please. So I don't know if you want to play that image. If that's a video, I don't know if you want to do that.
Mayor, would you like me to move
If
forward
it's
with the
part of
video?
your-
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
In the 1960s, Slater King, a cousin of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and a Georgia civil rights leader active in the Albany movement, noticed that as land price grew, undercapitalized African American farmers inevitably were forced off their land, moving to cities. A real estate broker and successful businessman, Slater King became inspired by the cooperative way that post-war Jewish settlers in Israel worked together to make home ownership affordable to immigrants. King birthed the community land trust movement in the United States with the founding of New Communities Incorporated. His innovative way of keeping valuable land in the hands of African Americans was a huge success, and today, King's model has spawned more than 250 community land trusts called CLTs around the country. As codified under federal law governing CLTs, the Hannibal Square Community Land Trust is a nonprofit corporation that holds community land in common. Homeowners can purchase and improve homes built on this common land. While these homes can appreciate in value, benefiting the homeowner, a pre-agreed formula prevents the home from getting too expensive for ordinary families to afford them. In practical terms, what you'll find is that Hannibal Square CLT offers you more home for your money than the same payment and credit profile would buy you elsewhere. These homes are beautiful, and because of the trust, they are also affordable. Income and credit restrictions apply, but we can work with you to get ready to buy. So call us right now with any questions you have, and by all means, apply to be a Hannibal Square CLT homeowner today.
So that's our presentation. Again, our CLT is not any different from any other CLT in that this is how they all work. The only thing that would be different from CLT to CLT is what is the resale formula.
Could you just add just one more thing before the questions? One thing that you did say was the quality of the home.
Oh,
Because, 100 years, so what if the house falls down? So
thank you for saying that. I didn't even think about that. For example, we're building 2 townhome developments, one in Apopka and one in Orlando currently. We just broke ground there, Apopka one on last Friday. Especially with COVID and then construction prices being so high, everyone was telling us that, what we're doing doesn't make sense because we're building concrete block on both floors. We're doing solid surface countertops, stainless steel appliances, laminate wood flooring, and they're saying, just do wood frame. That's going to be cheaper. Well, again, CLTs don't leave after we build it. And so because we're building them and we're expecting that this is going to be a 99-year agreement, whether it's with this buyer or it sells to another buyer, we're going to be in that whole process. We're going to build quality and build to last. It's not, again, like, many developers, they just need to build it, make that money and go. That's not how we work. So we take pride in the appearance of what we build and the quality of what we build.
now, are there any questions? Councilman, I'm sorry, Director.
Very nice presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question, maybe 2 questions or 3. What happens to the home if the home is ever damaged by fire or destroyed by storm?
So the homeowner has to get property insurance, just like any other homeowner. And if the homeowner is living there, and they have to get enough coverage to cover the value of the property. If the homeowner is living there and there's a fire or a storm or something like that, or we've had people who've had damages from hail storms to the roof, their insurance takes care of that. So there's no difference there. They're not renting from us. The only thing that they're renting from us is the land. And so they get the same coverages that any other homeowner would have.
Okay, in one of those slides, you had shown where a payment was something like $1,400. Okay, will they be paying that for the length of the 99 years, or does it ever change?
So
Fluctuate?
that $1,400 was comparing rent. That was a rental, that was a typical rent for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath as compared to a 3-2 house that somebody buys. So I was just showing how somebody's paying $1,400 rent. The CLT homeowner was actually paying $902 in a mortgage payment. It is a 30-year mortgage. After they've finished their 30 years, they don't pay anything else except the ground lease fee because their mortgage is paid off just like any other homeowner who buys a home. Yes.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Director Daniels.
Couple of questions. What percentage of homes are sold in those communities a year? So if there's 100 homes in that community, what percentage is generally sold?
Okay, so you're asking what percentage of our homes are sold? Because it's going to vary from CLT to CLT.
Right, so if there's a full capacity like Hannibal Square,
Mhm.
say capacity, and say they had 100 homes, how many of those generally sell each year?
So I'm going to tell you that we rarely have any resales. We've had since the organization began in 2004, I would say it's probably about 6 resales. Again, what happens is that you're purchasing a home in a community where you ordinarily wouldn't be able to purchase a home. And you're purchasing it at a price that makes it very, very attractive. And so many people don't want to sell. Hannibal Square, for example, is a very walkable community. There's so many different things in that area. Many people don't want to sell. So there isn't really, and it's going to vary, like I said, based upon, every CLT is going to have a different number based upon their geographic area and what their community is like. I would suspect that, in other areas, if we were building, we would have a higher resale. Most of the times when people sell in our CLT, it's because like the very first one sold because she got a job in a different state. We had the one that I was giving an example of, that couple purchased when they were a young couple, and then they had 2 children, they had a dog, they wanted a bigger house, and they sold, it was like 11 years later. So it's the same kinds of reasons that people sell, and it just depends on the community.
You actually answered my other question. And after Ms. Lewis get done, Chair, I have a question for you in reference to this.
I'm sorry, after what? I didn't hear it.
After we finish with Ms. Lewis, then I have a question for you.
Okay,
I have a couple of questions as well.
okay.
How many homes or properties do you have to participate in order for a trust to come in, for the CLT to come in?
If you're starting your own CLT, I guess you make that decision. You can start, our organization started with 10 homes. It's just, and then other CLTs, I mentioned Delray Beach a little while back. They are funded by the city of Delray CRA. They started off by providing them with land to build, I think it was 40-something homes. So it just depends. There's another one, South Florida CLT. They started off with an apartment complex that they were able to rehab. So there's no number that you have to start with. It's just the principles that you follow to make it a CLT.
How many CLTs are there in the state of Florida?
20 and counting.
How many properties are on Hannibal Square's CLT?
We have, in Hannibal Square, we have about 26 homes. And then we are building over the next year and a half, we'll have another 59 homes between Orlando and Apopka.
I also heard you say about gentrification, also a lack of education also causes that as well.
Sure.
That's all.
Yes. And that leads to gentrification too, because you're not understanding exactly.
Uncle
Right.
Boogie and our railroad said run my house
Yes,
instead of keeping it in the family.
exactly. Absolutely.
So hopefully we educate our descendants, our kids,
Yes.
say, hey, this land is valuable
Yes,
and keep it in the family.
yes.
But
Mhm.
I said that's why we're in the place where we are now
Totally agree.
because of those situations.
And I don't know if I asked you this before, but I know that Hannibal, the one in Winter Park, is in one area. A community land trust can start in one area, but it could be, and they're
Absolutely.
still all a part of one, of the
Absolutely.
same.
Absolutely. They could be, we're in Hannibal Square, but we're in several different portions of Hannibal Square. It could be that you're in the city of Delray Beach, but you're in all different areas of Delray. What makes it the CLT again is the principles of how the property is purchased and how the agreement is written.
But would they be considered in the same land trust?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
The second one, you did not speak about the pre-approval list.
Oh, our pre-approval list?
So when people sell,
Yes.
because if you have a running, when people know that there's hope,
Right.
then they're more willing to be pre-approved. So
Yes.
would you just share that part?
Yeah, yes, one of the things that we do is we work again with our HUD credit counseling agency to try to get people approved for mortgages. So we try to streamline the entire process because we don't want a situation where somebody thinks that they can buy a home and then it comes time we're getting close to closing and they can't buy. So they complete an application with the CLT. And then after we have a pre-screening, then we connect them with our credit counseling partner. Credit counseling partner does a soft credit pull and then tries to determine where they are as far as income and credit. If they need assistance with credit, they put them through a program to get them to where they can get the credit score required. For our CLT, we require a minimum 640 credit score. And the reason why we want 640 is because we know that even with the land being one of the first subsidies, the way prices are today, you need as many down payment assistance as you can, and you can stack them. And so the most conservative one we have is from the state of Florida, and it requires a 640 credit score. So if they get the 640, then they can also fit in for anything that the local government has, and they can also fit in for anything that the bank is offering if they've been approved by a lender. So we go through a pre-approval process. We typically have a boot camp. And we bring people in, we bring all of our lenders in. Again, there's a partnership with our lenders. We have, I think it's 8 lenders now. We have banks, mortgage companies, VA lenders, and credit union. And so they participate. They're part of our team. We have a boot camp. Once the potential buyer has met the credit and income profile, then we can gear them to the lender that best fits what their needs are. So if somebody fits under the HEROES program, and this bank over here is doing a really good program for HEROES, we put them there. If somebody else would do better off with a VA loan, we put them over here. But the whole process is part of the work to make sure that people are able to qualify and get approved. It's a lot of times if you're a first-time home buyer, it's very, very daunting to go find a lender and talk to somebody to get a loan. And it's very intimidating. But if you have a chance to talk to these people face to face in this setting where everybody's doing the same thing, 1, there's a comfort level. 2, now you know a name and somebody who you can call off the bat and talk to and say, hey, listen, this came up with my situation, what can I do? And you feel comfortable because you already had a conversation with them. When we first started our process with our townhomes at West Lakes, the minute it was announced that we had these homes available, we ended up with over 200 applicants and for 30 units. And we put them through the screening process. We now have a wait list of approved buyers that if somebody has something come up, medical, whatever, and they've already been approved on a contract for a home, they cannot go forward, we can move somebody else in. It also helps with us if we need to do a resale from one of our existing homes as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you go about getting the properties, the land? Do you have owners of property that wants to put their land in a community trust? Or how does that work? How do you find?
So that has happened in CLTs that are way older than us, that have been around, like in New England and things like that. That hasn't happened for us here. Typically, again, it works better if local governments do land banking and provide us with the land. That works best. Sometimes if the numbers work, we will purchase the land ourselves. But we haven't had anyone come and say, I want to just donate our home to the CLT. That would be wonderful, but we haven't had that.
So in our case, it will be town would have properties.
Yes.
And then we can form a community trust.
Yes.
For that reason,
Mm-hmm.
what you just explained.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got a question?
So, Chair, my question is, where is proposed CLT we're talking about for this first time?
There isn't one.
Yeah.
What I wanted tonight was for you to hear it. When I brought up the term land trust, some people just automatically equate it to sharecropping and just misinformation, because over time, land trusts have become tools for us to find equity. So tonight was just a listening, understanding session.
Thank you.
But if you want to know where I was going with it,
Go ahead.
when we look at how much land our town has lost, the reason I asked, does it have to be in one spot, is because we've driven by homes that are for sale, and they've been for sale for a while. But if we had an effective land trust, we could buy that house. That becomes part of the land trust. And over 10, 20 years, it's just like water, bees water coming back together. So when we think about the land we've lost, this is an opportunity for us to get that land back for the town. And also, it wasn't just for single family detached. You heard townhomes. The other idea to think about was condos. And if the condos are sitting on top of a mixed use project, then the condo fees in a traditional market will be paid by the rental of the retail on the bottom floor. The other thing is, I was looking at, can this work in the commercial market? We have African Americans or people of color or indigenous people that can't break through because if you want to purchase commercial land is very expensive. And then you got to purchase the land and build the building. But in this case, it's going to work the same way. So I was just looking at that as a model for the town to help its people and future generations.
Thank
That's it? Okay. Thank you again, Ms. Lewis. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the bylaws of the Town of Eatonville Community Redevelopment Agency. And if you've all had an opportunity and all the updates, as I was looking through and checking off all the, in the minutes, it shows all the changes that were requested. And then as I said in the bylaws, it seemed like all of them were hit.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to confirm this because I missed something. All right, that being said, is there a motion or you have questions? Okay. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed. Final item, approval of funding for the paint, plant, and pay program. But before we, just a couple of things. The artifacts that you have in your packet are drafts only, because if you look, it's the same agreement, and on the agreement it says up to 7,500, but on your cover sheet it says 5,000 per property. So we are looking at the 5,000 per property. Number one. Number two was the amount. On the new budget, Miss, you explain it.
Good evening. So on the ask is for 18,000 to start this program for this fiscal year. To move 18,000 to adjust the budget for this program. This program has also been put in the budget for next fiscal year, but I'm just asking right now so we can start this program and get it going for the citizens. So that's the ask.
For the end of this budget
For the
year.
end of this budget.
Then it starts full.
Yes.
And if it started this budget year, so we're in July, are we looking like, just a couple of houses or so?
Yes.
Not three
Yes.
homes. And the only other thing that I wanted to add, if you read the agreement or the draft here, the only thing that is also going to be an adjustment is on the draft, the program. If you remember the county, one of the things is the county cited us in that CRA audit was to make certain that whenever any work is performed, you have your you close it out with your photos and all of, anything you need to just confirm that the work was done properly with your final inspections and with photographs, I believe. So that's the only wording that we'll make certain on the documents.
Sure.
That will be added, yes.
I don't know if this is the right time, but I'm gonna ask that we table this right now. I think it's a great program. But I have a couple concerns. One, we know we have some outstanding things with other programs that happen in CRA that I don't think been finalized yet. I would like to see those completed, possible liens on, the chamber as well as the other property for Mr. Barney. I want to see, because I want to see if they got any financial implications to us. Also, my other concern is we're talking about moving $18,000 out of the salary line. We said because we haven't hired a fiscal person, but we're in a cost sharing agreement with the town of Enville, so some of that money would be allocated from that $18,000 for that. So I don't think that's a fair assessment of the funding that's needed. So I would ask that we table this. And then also my biggest flag on this is, from the last meeting, I said the financials weren't adding up, and it's nothing against Ms. Bonds, but the financials weren't adding up. So how can I make a fiscal decision without having proper documentation in front of me? So I would ask that we table this until the next one, until we get all these other items cleared up.
Okay, just the 18,000 here is just, that amount was really 36 because it's 18 and 18. So, but I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. In addition, I think the issues on the last budget that was presented was breaking out the payment. They didn't break out the taxes, like the FICA from the payment. Was there something else besides that? That's what I remember. That on that item, on the payroll, it had not been broken out. But the amount was right, they had not showed the distribution.
But the cost sharing has not been allocated from the town. So that amount they're showing is an inadequate number. Because everything has been paid on the town side, that money has not been deducted from the CRA, so that's not a good number of what we actually have. Because everything's been paid on the town side, I don't know what that total number is, so we got to subtract all that from that in order to have a good number. And that's why I say we should have, and that's another discussion, but I'll just ask, I'm for the program, but I would like to do some housekeeping first, and then we can just push it to the next CRA meeting so we can iron out all these other things. I think it'd be most advantageous for our residents.
Then I think at this point, we're just looking at the new budget year. Because the next, it's gonna be August, then we're in September. So we'll just look at it for the next budget year.
That was just my thing. I don't know how everybody else feels. That was just mine.
I mean, unless someone else has something.
Well, just a comment on what Director Marlon Daniels stated, I concur. And my other issue that I thought we had discussed at one time that if a person had previously received funding for this type or similar, that they would take first come, first serve based upon those who have not had the same or similar, because we don't want the same people getting their houses and things repaired. We have other people who have not had the opportunity to make an application and apply. So I didn't see that here.
So there would be a matrix when it comes to vetting of the applications that would come before the board. And so the board would vote on approval of the applicants.
Yeah, and I just want to say too, in regards to, and you know, whatever the board wants to do is fine, but in regards to, it just seems like you're talking about apples and oranges right now. Even if the numbers, those numbers, we're talking about numbers that have been budgeted. So it's just a matter of making certain that, it's just like if we budgeted for someone to fix the roof, but we haven't sent the invoices over to get, but that money has been budgeted. So getting that straight and this are two different things, number one. And in regards to the liens, this has nothing to do with either of those other things, but again, it's up to the board. But I just want to make that clear, regardless of that money has already been budgeted, we just need to make certain that it is being reflected correct, and I understand you on that. But it's just not the same. They're three different things going on, which is one of the reasons why we really need the fiscal coordinator.
And I understand that, Chair. I'm just saying, I think if we get housekeeping, I think we've been doing a better job of housekeeping. If we get the house cleaned up, then it's okay to add on an addition to the house once the rest of the house is cleaned up. You may not know that you need that extra room until you clean up. So I just think we just need to make sure those things are solidified before we actually run to the, but I can.
We did need that extra room, and I told y'all before we did need the extra room, and we were alerted to that. So let it be the will of the board. So it's on the board, on the agenda as a decision. So Ms. Director Randolph, what is it? You said you agreed with
Yeah,
Director
we just need to table it till we get
Vice
this
Chair.
resolved.
All right,
Before
so
we take on any new.
we move that we table
Yeah.
item 7, approval of funding, not item 7, approval of funding for the paint plant
So
and paint
are you,
program.
so are you tabling it, or you gonna put it to a vote and vote it down?
I'm hearing table.
Table.
Table, okay.
So is there a motion to table approval of funding for the paint plant and paint program?
I move.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Staff report. Attorney.
No report, other than last meeting, I was asked about an opinion on the use of CRA funds for festivals and things of that nature. And if anyone with the board did not get the report, I believe it was sent via email, but if you want a hard copy, I do have a hard copy here tonight for you.
Okay. Director Randolph.
No report. Thank everyone for coming.
Director Daniels.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Rep. Antoine, I know he will call back, so I'll make sure I do that. I can say that. I think we're moving in the right direction. We just got to just, like I keep saying, we got a house clean and get things moving forward. I would like to stress right now, I know we got budget workshops coming up, but I would like to make sure that this year's upcoming budget is in line with the town and is spelled out. So we don't have any confusion on what's the budget items as well as grants. So I thank everybody for that.
Vice Chair.
Yes, I'll be quick. I still have concerns. I still have concerns over the conclusion of what happened to our memory of our computers. I am not sure. I don't think so. I don't think I received anything saying what happened to our computers after the previous executive director has gone, that left. I would like to have some answers if I could. I also have great concerns on the process of having that executive director's salary of $70-some thousand being paid when we have statutes that say you have a limited amount, if I'm not mistaken, attorney, of a certain month or something after you have been terminated. I have concerns on the process. Now, what would ease my mind is to say if the process was followed, everything was done in order, this is what happened, and that executive director was able to be paid his full salary. I have concerns with that. I was wondering, did we ever have an inventory of the CRA after the previous executive director left with computers, laptop? Have we done an inventory to make sure we have everything that was supposed to be there? You have to answer, you can send that email so we can get everybody out. previous executive director before that was arrested. Had his laptop taken, a lot of stuff happened. And I think this is really serious on having, and I don't want to say erased, I want to say whatever, can we find out what malfunction happened that we don't have the memory of our computers for the CRA? And if possible, Ms. Bonds, can I get the application that the executive director filled out for, well, I guess that'd be on the town side, so I'll do it from the town side on the application for that grant. But thank everyone for coming out, and have a great night.
Just a question, when you say white, are you talking about the emails? Was that
I did, that's why I said, I wanted to find out what happened to the memory of the computers, because we established before that Ms. Bonds didn't have access or couldn't figure out what happened to some of the, I guess, memory or the backdated stuff on the computer. So that's why I didn't say erase. I said either erase or malfunction. Can we find out what happened first before we come to a definite determination of what happened to those computers?
No, I didn't say erase, I said emails. Is that what you were talking about?
It was some things that we asked for and they couldn't be found.
Okay,
Yes. And I would like to see what happened.
all right, there are a couple of times that we cannot access the emails because it's a email account you have to pay each month. And so a couple of times that happened, twice. So it's just a matter of paying it and then they reappear.
Paying and okay, because we should have access according to the ethics class that all of us took this course. Those things should be accessible in a timely manner. Some emails or whatever a public request is made, am I correct, during our ethics training?
Well,
some of those should
Are
be.
you missing a request?
Ma'am, no, Chair. Some of the stuff that was requested for, we established in our meeting that Ms. Bond did not have. So therefore, something happened, whether it be a malfunction or something was erased off of the computers. So I'm saying let's do an inventory, make sure we got our laptops and computers are there. Let's see if any of our data or our memory from our computers have been erased or altered in any way, whether that be a malfunction or intentional erase. That's what I'm saying. Then I would ease my mind before I say something was done intentionally. That's all I'm saying.
In regards to the 71,000, that was something that when the auditors, I think they met with each of you, gave them your concerns. That was an item that I gave the auditor, just as in the last meeting I stated, why don't we ask the auditor? So that is something that they're looking at, because that's what municipal auditors should do. And in regards to get back with the inventory. I just know that about emails, in most municipalities, that's all internal. They have an internal email system. We're not there yet. So you have to pay the bill. So the email account had to be paid. And when it expired, you could not access, nothing was wiped, you couldn't access it. So when that was figured out, it was paid, and that problem has been taken care of, so it doesn't happen again. Am I correct? Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Why was it not paid?
Well, it's just like anything else, you have to, it's not an automatic debit to the account, so you have to remember to pay it. It's just a matter of when the before Ms. Bonds came, it had already been paid. But if you don't know the routine, then payment came due, payment wasn't made, and then it was figured out what the issue was, it was paid, and now Ms. Bonds is aware of making those payments.
That shows the lack of managing and making sure that we meet our obligations.
No, that shows a
must be
lack
paid.
of technology, and it's one of the things that we need to fix. One additional thing, it isn't about management. It is about something else that we need to upgrade. Because even when you think, even if it was paid every month and this was not an issue, it is still an issue because we should have access to all emails at all times, going back as far back as we can remember. And the way it's set up now, we are in danger of that. So this is way beyond if a bill was paid, with all due respect. So, I mean,
Chair, I got a question, man.
yes.
So municipalities, state government, federal government, everybody's using Gmail. You put a credit card on file, it automatically renews every month. It should be there in the cloud. So that would not be the case. It's municipal government, everybody knows that you put a credit card on file and it's saved. But for something to be erased or something not to be there, that means someone had to physically go in and do it.
Well, if that was the case, then when it was paid, then we wouldn't have access to the same emails that would have been erased. So no, that's not correct. And it only, even if I go on my computer and pay something I pay every month, it pops up for me. That doesn't mean they can automatically debit the account. Now, and the second thing is, when there was a switch in the card change, when there was a switch in staffing, that old card was changed. It was no longer available. So a new card. So in that, then when the new card would arrive, it had already been updated the first time. When it happened the second, because it happened twice. When it happened the second time, that's when Ms. Bond was here. In the last, I can't even tell you when it happened, a month, 2 months ago, I don't know.
So in question, and the reason I can talk on this because when I wasn't getting information, I was the one who went over there. That's when I noticed that you can do an audit. If you understand IT security, you can go through and see who changed his password, who changed all that. That information has changed.
Right,
So,
but you're talking about something totally different. It only holds 4 names. So you also saw 2 staff members that are no longer there. You see their names down there, but you don't see them as one of the 4 active members. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So Chair, even if you suspend the account, the information stays there. They give you a lesser rate that you pay.
So you're just saying what I said.
No. So the information will still be there.
Information is there.
So the information wasn't there because that's how I remember I came in that time and I told you that how did your name get changed after the fact when the previous director, I'm gonna call names, Director Johnson went in, he had access to emails after the fact. When someone is terminated, they do not have access to your IT system once they're terminated. Anybody knows that when a company or anybody get ready to terminate you, HR, everybody's notified and they're gonna cut off your IT immediately because that's how malfeasance and malpractice and everything else start happening. That was that case. The other thing that we're talking about also is when I was over with Ms. Bonds looking at the computer, she was trying to access files and the files were no longer there on that system. So if the files are not on the system, that means someone deliberately or malfunction, however y'all want to say it, it disappeared off the system. And we know as being a municipality that records cannot be discarded from the government.
Okay, so I wasn't gonna go that deep into it. But that only works if you have an efficient system. When you don't have an efficient system, some people use their credit card. And when they're no longer here, no one's thinking about that because that bill had already been paid. When that was occurring, which I'm not certain why you had access, and I'm not making this personal, please. But if there was any suspicion of anything happening, then it seems to me that a tech expert could have went over it instead of now someone else part of that link, part of that chain. So again, it is just what I said. Payments. That's all it is. When you don't make your payment, you don't have access.
So my last thing, and I'll leave it alone. So you telling me the previous director had his personal credit card on that?
I don't know if it was a personal, it was a credit card.
It was a time debit card because you look at the bank statements, it shows that it was coming out of the time account.
But whatever.
CRA account.
Oh, no. Okay, so let me back up. The initial payment was, but when it was set up it's set up under a name, that whole email system. And I'm going by what I've learned since, not what I knew then. When it was set up by the authorized, the administrator. Yes, that was the town's credit card. When it ended and we couldn't figure out what happened, I wasn't the administrator. You weren't the administrator. There's only one person that could access it to get it done. When we found out, we contacted the former director, and literally just 30 days was paid to keep it open enough to now have me be able to log on. That's when I changed the access, gave it to the prior CAO, who gave it to the interim director. And the only thing that happened since then, it just expired again. And I mean, I can't say anything past that. Yes, Vice Chair.
What's going to satisfy me is I didn't know anything about anything happening to the computer until that meeting. And I sat here and I asked the executive director, Ms. Bonds, has something been happened to the computer? And she didn't definitely answer, but she just kind of did this. So in order for my mind to be at ease that nothing was done, I would like an audit, because it's just like a car. If you change the mileage on it, you get a mechanic in there, he can tell if something's been altered. So I would like to have a tech person go in and see if anything has been erased off those computers, because that you can see. And then my mind would be okay, my heart would be okay that we did everything that we're supposed to do.
That's fine. With that being said, I move for adjournment.
So moved.
It's been moved a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
7:42.
7:42, thank you.
He missed more than consecutive meetings. Yeah, but you know, he was placed by Orange County.
Here for you.